welcome to another edition of Spilling the Tea on GovCon. I'm Teresa Moon, Director of Business Development for Parabolas. We provide a better financial partnership for government contractors that includes a line of credit to fund your growth. The purpose of this podcast is to assist small businesses with success in the federal marketplace by introducing them to industry experts and resources that they may not otherwise know about. Today, my guest is Melanie Patterson, founder and CEO of Integrity Global Logistics and Team Integrity Knowledge Center. She and I connected 2 years ago, and I've been following her success on multiple levels and see her business acumen, positivity, and service to others truly inspiring. Welcome, Melanie.
Hello, hello, hello. What an introduction. Wow. Okay.
Well, good morning, right?
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for that, Teresa. And thank you for inviting me to your platform.
Absolutely. I think today's going to be a great conversation. But before we start, if you would please, if you share a little bit about yourself with our audience, your road to business ownership, and a little bit about what your company does.
Oh, are you ready for this?
We're ready.
So I'm not the traditional entrepreneur. So let me take you guys back just a little bit. So Melanie Patterson, I'm a girl from Chicago who was met with adversities. And along the way, I found myself and I led into the field of medicine. So I actually hold a master's degree as a nurse practitioner, and I worked ER trauma for about 7 years. I have to be honest, my first major was business management and administration, which was always my initial passion, but I led into medicine. While I was working as a nurse in ER trauma, I did own a few businesses along the side. And, nursing is very rewarding, very rewarding. I loved it. It was my passion. It was my jam. But I had little kiddos and I was missing Christmas morning. I was missing Thanksgiving and all of those memory moments. And so I asked myself, what would it look like to jump into entrepreneurship full time? Being that I was a part-time entrepreneur, I just said, well, what would it look like to kind of bet on myself and jump? And so that's where I started to kind of do the research on what this would look like. Some colleagues, some friends were telling me about the transportation industry. And Teresa, I have to be honest. I was like, oh no, absolutely not. The risk is immense. And so I didn't want to invest into transportation. Well, here I am. And so moving forward, I made the hard decision to leave the bedside and jump into entrepreneurship full time. And so that's where Integrity Transit came into place, which is our asset-based transportation company. Then we went on to grow Integrity Global Logistics, and then now Team Integrity Knowledge Center, where I'm just simply reaching back to my community and showing them what's possible and how you build, grow, and scale small businesses by onboarding the government as a strategic partner.
That's amazing. And I didn't know that about you, about your background in medicine. And that's awesome. It makes sense, though, because you do have a very calming and soothing personality. First time, we talked several times before we ever met in person. Yeah. And when I met you in person, you bring out this vibe of I've known you forever. So that was probably super important in your bedside manner. And I'm sure Absolutely. The patients that had the privilege of working with you felt that as well. So it makes total sense. And it's a great segue into how I want to start the conversation with you. I'm going to ask you some questions, but first is going to get a little personal. You're an extremely positive and inspiring personality. You're very charismatic and dynamic. And a lot of what I see in your outreach on social media and in person in general when you're representing your companies is that you have an extreme commitment to personal growth. And so if you wouldn't mind, talk a little bit about how that commitment to personal growth has been able to affect your ability to be an effective business leader.
Just straight out, it's essential. It's pivotal. as me being the captain and the leader of this empire, I knew from the very beginning that I had to pour into myself, and personal development was a non-negotiator for me. And then since you said we need to be transparent, let me go ahead and be transparent. So I come from two immigrant parents. I was raised by a single mother, a fearless single mother, and they were working class for the most part. I never really had a view of what an entrepreneur or what a leader of an empire even looked like. And so getting started and jumping and betting on myself, I knew that I needed to do the work to develop myself so I can then really see the vision of this empire. And it's not easy being positive by any means, but that's intentional, and that's what I choose to lead with. It's been tremendous. It's been a journey, but I definitely see the reward from it. And so I say right now, where I'm at in my journey, I'm in love with the results of personal development. And so I have dived into sobriety. So we've been a little bit over a year sober from alcohol. I invest in myself with attending of workshops and webinars. I'm a super fan of Dr. Grace Lee. I don't know if you're familiar with who she is, but she is a phenomenal coach and mentor on executive leadership. And I knew that, being that I didn't come from that soil, that I had to kind of find a community and a place to embrace that growth and development, so then I can pour into my company. And so that's where it kind of just stemmed from.
I love that. And you do have to commit yourself fully, and you know, acknowledgement is key, right? I have some deficiencies here that I need to fill with specific tools. And you mentioned leaning into community and leaning into people who are providing you with information on positivity that you might have and not have access to. How many, you know, different tactics do you employ? I know some people meditate, some people, you know, speak to themselves in the mirror. You know, a lot of it starts with just waking up and telling yourself today's going to be a good day and walking yourself through it, because we're not naturally you know, ingrained with the ability to wake up and lean into the positive and lean into the joy every day. Do you have any particular personal achievement practices that you employ?
Yeah. First, let's really highlight that it's not easy, especially in this marketplace and this temperature with COVID and you know, inflation, and then entrepreneurship in itself is very challenging. And so let's highlight that it is not easy. And I say that to say that's where that intentional component comes in. And so I make a diligent effort every day to speak words of affirmation into myself. And tools, I don't know if I would say it would be a tool, but definitely being my number one fan for sure, leaving room for error, not being so critical on myself, and always just having the goal of being 1% better than yesterday. Nothing too crazy, nothing too challenging, and just being that 1% better than yesterday. Leaving room for error, understanding maybe, Melanie, there's no such thing as balance. Husband, children, businesses, multiple teams, multiple companies, and then don't forget about yourself, right? And so it's just being aware and understanding what that looks like and implementing that every day. I will be honest, I am starting to fall in love with running. And so that's my opportunity to kind of release and get it out there. And then for me, just talking to my pops, talking to my dad.
Yeah.
Like that's my safe place. That's where I kind of get the motivation to be this fearless rock star out here in a world of wolves, so to speak. And so that's, nothing too crazy. I'm sorry.
It isn't crazy, right? But it is the consistent practice of things like that, providing yourself with grace, talking nicely to yourself, and then surrounding yourself by those people who uplift you, right? who fan the flames instead of pouring gasoline on it. I think that
Mm.
that's so important. And I share that with you as well. And we'll definitely have conversations with those in mind at another time as well. But that's great information. And I think a lot of people need to start thinking about that personal aspect of their growth is equally as important to them being happy internally as it is to a projection of it in professional growth. And so, let's jump into that professional side of things too, because you've already made reference to the fact that entrepreneurship itself is challenging, but going into government contracting provides obstacles that are different than what a typical commercial business owner would be dealing with. And so as a woman-owned business, minority-owned business, there's a lot of obstacles that we face when we're entering into business, period. And I know that you have some, great insight as it pertains to that. So what have you seen as your greatest influence in terms of obstacles in government contracting?
Within the government contracting space. So I think I need to open up with this. First of all, let's address it. I am a woman. I'm a minority in a very male, Caucasian male dominated industry, transportation and government contracting, right? So not only just government contracting, but transportation as well. There has been some obstacles there. Let's be open and let's be honest. There are definitely some barriers that I have to penetrate, some doors that I have to kick down, but you have to just continue to rise up against those things. And so I lead with integrity. I lead with integrity and I lead with my knowledge before anything. And that's the strategy that I've used in every room, in every meeting, every hand that I shake. And I truly believe that that has helped me to differentiate myself as well. Yes, I'm a woman. Yes, I'm a minority, but I have so much more to offer too as well. Government contracting has been very, very interesting, especially the space of transportation and government contracting. I just have to continue to show up and execute. I feel personally that I have to over execute at times. As you know, a lot of these boardroom meetings don't look like women like you and I.
Yeah.
That is changing. Let me address that too as well. We are shifting what the avatar of an executive and a CEO looks like here in today's day, which I am honored and proud to stand behind that. But we have some more work to do for sure. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you 10,000%. 10,000%. I think 90% of the battle is just getting in the room, right?
Yeah.
Making your own seat at the table, whether you've been invited there or not. I think there's a lot of respect that can be gained by that. And, we can all look at things from the perspective of where we're being kept out, but it also is as a mentality too. Just because someone says we can't do it, it's like, okay, well, watch me. And you really are proving that. You are showing that every single day. And I respect it immensely, but I think the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the results, right? And you're showing that day in and day out. And I think that a lot of people are going to be able to relate to this and going to be able to take some of those practices into their own day-to-day so that they can achieve similar goals. And so I think it's super important not only to recognize that you see the challenges before you instead of ignoring them, you're facing them, and then you're sharing that information with the community that you're building around you. And I want to talk about that because you have a very deep commitment to serving others. And I think, a lot of it obviously is evident from your first endeavors in nursing. I mean, that is the crux of what it means to be a medical provider in any capacity, right? Is that willingness and desire to serve others. But you practice that now in your businesses that you have today. And so tell us a little bit about Team Integrity Knowledge Center and how you assist business owners.
Absolutely, for sure. I say, what would it do me to keep it all to myself? Right. And then one of the beauties of government contracting is there's enough for everybody. There's enough for everybody. And one thing that I really, really embrace and I enjoy is the power in collaboration within government contracting. So that looks different within the private and public sector, for instance. Let me give you an example. So within the private sector, you may look at the person to your left and your right as competition.
Mm-hmm.
Within government contracting, I look at you as my comp mate, my partner, right? And so I want to showcase that to our entrepreneurs, especially within our minority communities, is that two strands are stronger than one, especially within government contracting. And so at Team Integrity Knowledge Center, we are a premium consultant firm where we help small to medium-sized organizations strategically align with government contracting and build, grow, and scale as small business owners. And I always believe that I have to lead by example for them to even buy in, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people don't buy the product, they buy the person behind the product. And so when I made the decision, which was a challenging decision because I am pretty private overall, to enter into this social media space, I said, I'm going to show up authentically myself, and I'm going to show up leading by example.
Mm-hmm.
And so this girl here, I am a CEO. I run a business. I'm truly operating an organization with integrity and letting people see that the collaboration is much more powerful than standing alone.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we really are battled with as CEOs and all of those titles that come with entrepreneurship, is wanting to be the biggest and the baddest. Well, not so much. Everybody's not meant to be the chief.
Right.
And within government contracting, frankly, it's okay to be the Indian, i.e., a subcontractor,
right?
A joint venture partnership. That's music to my ears, me personally. And so I said, Melanie, how can you show this to your people? How can you show this to people just like you? By example. By example. And so honestly, Teresa, what you see on social media is just authentically me and how I operate and how I have built this empire, by understanding the power of alignment. For sure.
I think the leading by example point is key, right? It's one thing to speak it, but walking the line with the people that you're sharing the information with is so important. So often I tell people in the presentations that I do across the country that forming a network of other business owners around them to learn from their experiences, it's one thing to make a mistake, right? But if you can learn from the mistake of someone else, you don't have to make it the second time, whether it was yours the first time to be had or not, right? It is sharing those experiences. You can learn more from someone who's a little bit farther ahead of you. You can learn from them and not necessarily have to take the same hard road that they did. Because as you know, I know I'm preaching to the choir with this, but those professional downfalls, those pitfalls in your road, those obstacles that you overcome that you still really didn't get the result that you wanted afterwards, that's where you learn. And giving that information back so that someone else doesn't have to trudge along that same, murky road is so valuable. And I think all too often people don't like to be vulnerable, so they don't like to share those personal achievements through failure. I'm fortunate enough to be led by people who have owned their own businesses as well and have shared how important that, fear of failure is to the projection of how far you're going to be able to grow. If you don't fail, you can't know what you're capable of, what you're made of, right? It's those opportunities to really rebound and show resiliency that not only show you as a good leader, but they teach yourself what you're made of. Because if you're constantly succeeding, you're never going to know what you're truly made of. It's not where the lessons are learned. The lessons are learned in the hard times.
And you know what, Teresa? I say the lessons are for me. Right? Because if you take a well-learned lesson, that's invaluable, right? And so another thing within government contracting space is we see a lot of people talking about government contracting educating those about government contracting and what it can do for your business,
Mm-hmm.
right? I rarely see someone who is a small business owner truly operating and functioning as a small business owner, speaking to the failures or the lessons with small business and government contracting. And that is something that I wanted to be very intentional about, because I feel like the lessons are the gems, so to speak, in the process of growth. Yep. And so you hit it right on the head. The lessons for me are wins.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, we all, have failures or points that we aren't necessarily waking up in the morning and hoping that's going to be the result, right? But it's that intentionality that you talk about and being able to speak it openly. It helps not only the person who's dealt with it get through it again and again and again, but providing the people that are behind them that really look to them for that assistance and for that guidance, to be able to see them as an expert and someone that they want to aspire to be like as well. And the people that I value the most in my life are those that are okay with being a little vulnerable and being able to share a little bit of what that side of life looks like, because it isn't always through rose-colored glasses, right? Sometimes that gets shattered, and we need to learn how to be resilient. I've said it before. I'm big on the positive mantras, and I said for a while, I was a single mom for a while, and I said my boyfriend was Tony Robbins, because I would wake up in the morning and listen to him every day. But one of my favorites is Les Brown, and a favorite quote of mine from Les Brown is, "It's okay to fall down. Just make sure you land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up."
Oh, I love that.
I love it, right? Because you're not the only one that has hardships, and most people can rally behind you around that. But if you don't have it within yourself, you might not be able to get up off the ground. Somebody might be able to give you a hand up, but it might not be as impactful as what comes from within. And so I think everything that you're doing is amazing. And I want to encourage our community to look you up. We've been sharing your information on LinkedIn. If you've got some upcoming, you do a webinar podcast for Team Integrity Knowledge Center as well. If you could share with our listeners where you're going to be in the upcoming months, where we can find you regularly for events, online activities, things like that.
Oh, sure, definitely. So I actually have a free workshop coming up on January the 27th. You guys can check that out on one of the links that they post and share. I will be at Manifest in February, which will be hosted in Las Vegas, which is going to be super exciting. And then I will be at the Broker Carrier Conference in April, a few different places, but you can definitely get updated by joining our mailing list at www.teamintegrityknowledgecenter.com. And then across the board on all social media platforms, Team Integrity Knowledge Center, Team Integrity Knowledge Center on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and all those other fun places. And then myself, Melanie Patterson _CEO on Instagram, Facebook, and then just simply Melanie Patterson on LinkedIn.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise and just your overall demeanor is amazing. And I think this is going to be a hugely impactful conversation. So I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Teresa. I want to thank you so much. From the moment that I met you, you were a valuable resource, and you were intentional with that. I often call you the dot connector because that's what you do very, very well. And I want to thank you so much for all that you do for our community within the government contracting space, and especially for small business owners, where funding is one of our top bottlenecks for sure.
It sure is. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate that your vote of confidence. I know that'll go a long way. So, and I didn't even have to pay you to say that.
Nope, not at all.
Well, thank you again so very much for being here. We'll definitely have you back again to talk about some other things soon.
Please.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Well, as always, we pride ourselves on sharing the most insightful and exciting people and information to help you better navigate your GovCon journey. If you like what you heard today, you can see all of our past podcasts, which are archived on our YouTube channel by the same name. Stay tuned for all of our future guests in the coming months as we help you grow to great heights in the year ahead. I'm Teresa Moon, and this is Spilling the Tea on GovCon. Have a great day, my friends.